Hi, and welcome back to this video series all about the top-down center-out method for fitting a pair of pants. This is part 4 of the series, and we're talking about fitting a waistband today. As you know from watching the previous videos, the waistband is the key to a successful fit on a pair of pants. And that's why we spend a little bit more time up front being very intentional about how the waistband fits us. So we fit it first, and we just fit the waistband so we can really pay attention to the decisions that we're making here. The conventional methods for fitting will tell you that you can just use a piece of string or an piece of elastic to hold up your toile as you're fitting it, but top-down center-out says that's not enough. We need to make sure this waistband is stable and comfortable and fits us just right so that we have that foundation that we need as we are fitting our toile. The other reason why we fit the waistband first with top-down center-out is because really top-down center-out wants to give us an early and easy win in the fitting process. It's not hard to fit a waistband. There's a few things you can optimize for, but I find it gives me a little confidence boost as I'm heading into the toile fitting stage. So let's talk about construction. This video will focus on non-stretch types of waistbands. You can absolutely fit an elastic waist pants pattern using top-down center-out. You just have a couple additional choices for how to do that, and I'll explain all of that in a future video. If you're using a non-stretch woven waistband, you have a few options. You can make a straight waistband, which is really the most straightforward. It's just a long rectangle of fabric. You could also be using a contoured waistband that has a little bit of curve to it. You could also have chosen a pattern that has no waistband at all, but instead it has a facing. So if that's the case, then you would just fit the facing for this step. It'd be very similar to fitting a contoured waistband. Now, if you are constructing your waistband, you want to make sure that you're using the same type of construction techniques and materials that you would as in your final garment. So if there's interfacing called for in your waistband, then you're going to use that interfacing when you construct your waistband for fitting. If you're using a straight waistband, then you have an additional option, which is to use a product called Banroll. It's basically a woven strip of material that you can sew into a waistband, and it provides some extra rigidity to the waistband to prevent it from getting crushed or collapsing throughout the day. But it maintains a really high degree of flexibility. So I like this instead of a heavy-duty interfacing sometimes for a really stable, comfortable waistband. Now, I want to talk about materials for a second, and I typically will use cotton muslin, as you see here, for most of my toiles and my waistbands. However, there are some times when I will use a different fabric, and I recently made a pair of jeans in a really heavyweight denim, and I decided to toile the waistband in that same fabric because I wanted to see how that heavy-duty denim would affect the fit of the waistband. How bulky are the seams going to be? How much give is this fabric going to have in this waistband over the course of the day? Is it going to stretch at all? I wanted to really test all of those properties out, so I decided to make my waistband for fitting in the same fabric as I was going to use in the final garment. So that is an option if you want to see how the material that you've chosen for your project is going to affect the fit of the waistband. The other thing I'll mention here is that I've seen a lot of people who use this method essentially dial in all of their preferences for how a waistband fits, and then they use the same waistband for all of their fitting, for all of their toiles. And that's a great idea. If you know that you like a straight waistband or a curved waistband or whatever kind of waistband, if you've really dialed in your preferences for that and you just want to use that waistband for all of your pants patterns, that's great. You can even go ahead and add a snap or a button to your waistband and make it a permanent fixture in your sewing toolkit. Now, whatever you do, whether you're using a straight waistband, a contoured waistband, or a facing, as you are constructing your waistband, you want to run a line of stitches along the seam allowance for your waistband. So if it's a straight or contoured waistband, that line of stitches will be at the bottom. If it's a facing, that line of stitches will be at the top. You want to mark where the toile will attach to the waistband. This is going to be your reference point for where you pin and adjust your toile fabric. I like to use a contrast color when I'm stitching so that I can see it easier as I'm fitting. The other thing you want to do is add a line of stitches to your waistband to indicate where the center back is, because as you're fitting, you're going to need to make sure that your waistband center back is aligned to your center back. So I find a line of stitches here helps me have just a little more tactile information about where the center back is and helps me align it that much easier. When I first started out with this method, I thought to myself, how hard is this really to fit a waistband? You wrap it around yourself, you pin it, you call it a day. But as I was doing it, what I learned was that there actually were a number of decisions I needed to make, and there were a few things that I was optimizing for. The first thing was the position on my body. So where do I want that waistband? Is it up near my waist? Is it down near my hips? How high or low on my torso is that waistband positioned? The other thing to think about is, do you want that waistband tilted a little bit? If you have a tilted waist, then you may want that waistband to sit on your body in a way that's not parallel to the floor. Any of these positions will work for the pattern that you've chosen. It's a matter of figuring out what is your personal preference and where do you like that waistband positioned. The second thing to optimize for is the circumference. So how much ease is in that waistband? Do you want it really tight? Do you want it a little bit looser? It's important that it's stable on your body, but ease is a very personal preference. And so this is something that you can play around with. If you're not sure how much ease you like in the waistband that you're fitting, it's a good idea to give yourself a little bit of extra room to play around with things. So I added at least 6 inches to my straight waistband as I was fitting it, and that allowed me to try different heights along my torso, a little bit lower near my hips or up near my waist. This gave me a little bit more to play with. The third thing that you're optimizing for is the shape of the waistband. So if you're using a straight waistband, there's really only one thing you can play with, and that's the height of that waistband. But if you are using a contoured waistband, then not only are you thinking about the height of the waistband, but you're also thinking about how contoured is that waistband. Is it more contoured? Does it need to be less contoured? So that's something that I typically need to adjust when I'm using a contoured waistband or a facing. Now, for all 3 of these different things that you're optimizing for, there is a concept from top down, center out, that there is a Goldilocks zone for each of these different characteristics of your waistband, where you've dialed it in and it needs to be just right. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's just right. So for me, I found that when I was fitting a straight waistband, I don't have a lot of straight waistband pants in my wardrobe. So I found that I needed to try out different positions on my torso, different circumferences, different shapes, even higher or lower height to the waistband. And I did this over a few days. I would try on the waistband at a specific position, and I would pin it and then sit down and do some work or go do the dishes or go about my day for a few minutes and see if that particular combination of position and circumference and shape was working for me. So I encourage you to spend some time with this process if you're not really sure what you like for this particular type of waistband that you've chosen. It's really worth it to spend a little more extra time and care into getting this waistband to be just right and get it into that Goldilocks zone. Next time, I'll talk about how to choose a size using the top-down, center-out method, and how to start preparing our pattern to make our toiles. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Happy sewing!